What if the star everyone thought would be Hollywood's next big thing became her own worst enemy? Rachel Zegler, the young woman who dazzled the world in West Side Story and seemed destined to conquer the big screen, is now at the center of a storm that has everyone talking. Her latest film, a high-budget project that was supposed to be her ticket back after a couple of years full of setbacks, has come to a complete halt. We're not talking about a minor delay, a scheduling adjustment, or a technical issue that gets resolved in a few days. The production has stopped entirely, as if someone had pressed the pause button on a set full of cameras, lights, and hundreds of professionals. And according to rumors spreading like wildfire, there is only one person at the center of this disaster: Rachel. What could have happened for such a promising film to end in chaos? The story is wilder than you could imagine. Full of confrontations, unexpected attitudes, and a drama that is shaking the very foundations of Hollywood, it all begins with an opportunity that seemed too perfect to fail. Just a few months ago, Rachel Zegler was in a position that any young actor would envy. After the criticism she received for her comments about Snow White and some social media posts that divided her audience, she needed a project that would put her back on the radar, but for the right reasons. This was not a small film, an independent production, or a cameo in a streaming series. It was a big-budget movie, backed by one of the largest studios in Hollywood, with a cast full of recognizable names and a director with a track record of hits. The headlines couldn't stop talking about her. The great comeback of Rachel Zegler. The golden opportunity to shine. The film promised an explosive mix of action, drama, and raw emotion, with a role designed to showcase Rachel's range as an actress. Fans were excited, sharing theories on X about how this project would catapult her to stardom. Critics, although skeptical after her past controversies, were curious to see if she could live up to expectations. And in the halls of Hollywood, executives were watching closely, knowing that this was Rachel's moment to prove she wasn't just a shooting star. Everything seemed aligned for an epic comeback. But, as often happens in this industry, things aren't always what they seem behind the cameras. Filming began with the typical excitement of a major production. The set was buzzing with energy, with technicians adjusting lights, actors rehearsing lines, and the director giving precise instructions to capture the film's vision. But it didn't take long before the first problems started to arise. According to sources close to the production team, Rachel didn't arrive on set with the attitude everyone expected from a rising star. At first, it was small things details that might seem insignificant in another context, but on a film set, where every minute counts, they're quickly noticed. She would show up a few minutes late to shoots, holding a coffee in her hand as if there were no rush. During blocking rehearsals, she was seen making sarcastic remarks or rolling her eyes whenever someone asked her to adjust a line. A lighting technician, who asked to remain anonymous, commented that it seemed like Rachel didn't think she needed to be there, as if she were doing the team a favor just by showing up. It was as if she thought the set revolved around her, the source said. These incidents were subtle, and at first, the crew tried to ignore them. After all, Rachel was young, under pressure, and had just come out of a couple of tough years. Maybe she just needed time to adjust, right? But what started as minor friction soon turned into a storm that no one saw coming. The atmosphere on set began to change, and what had once been minor annoyances turned into a problem that could no longer be ignored. According to multiple reports, Rachel not only arrived late or made disparaging remarks, but she also began to question the script itself. Sources claim that she demanded significant changes to her character, arguing that it did not reflect her image or what she wanted to project as an actress. The script, which had already been finalized after months of work, was not designed to please a single person, but rather to tell a coherent story. But Rachel, according to insiders, did not seem interested in serving the story. A source close to the writing team revealed that Rachel would come to meetings with marked pages, suggesting new lines and scenes that would highlight her character more. It wasn't collaboration. said the source. It was as if she wanted to rewrite the movie so it would be about her. The director, known for his patience, tried to mediate, explaining to her that the changes would affect the pacing and the narrative. But Rachel, according to rumors, would not give in, and her attitude began to create friction not only with the director, but also with other actors who felt their roles were being overshadowed. The breaking point came during a directing session that should have been completely routine. It was a day like any other on set, with the crew getting ready to shoot a key scene. The director, a veteran with years of experience, gave Rachel some basic notes about her delivery and the pacing of her lines. They weren't harsh criticisms, just adjustments to help the take flow better. But Rachel didn't take it well. Witnesses say her expression changed instantly, as if the director's words were a personal attack. Suddenly, she raised her voice, something that surprised everyone on set. "Are you telling me how to do my job?" she shouted, according to a source who was present. Then, she accused the director of undermining her talent and, in a moment that left everyone speechless, stormed off the set, still wearing her character's costume. The cameras were rolling. The extras stared in astonishment from the background, and the silence that followed was so heavy you could feel it in the air. A production assistant, who spoke under anonymity, described the moment as surreal. "It was as if time had stopped," she said. No one knew what to do. That outburst not only halted filming that day, but also marked the beginning of the end for the production. What happened next turned the set into a battlefield where no one wanted to be. The incident with the director was not just a moment of tension. It was the trigger for a total collapse on set. The crew, who until then had tried to maintain professionalism, began to rebel in subtle but significant ways. A supporting actor, who had several key scenes with Rachel, flatly refused to continue filming with her unless a mediator was present to prevent further conflicts. "I'm not going to deal with that again," he said, according to a source close to the actor. The makeup team, who usually work closely with the actors, started rotating shifts so they wouldn't have to spend time in Rachel's trailer. One makeup artist commented that it was exhausting to be around her. There was always a cloud of tension. Even the extras, who normally have no voice on a set, began to whisper among themselves, sharing stories about how Rachel would ignore crew members who tried to help her or make disparaging remarks about the director's instructions. A production assistant was more direct in her description of the atmosphere. "The set felt toxic. No one wanted to be there and everyone knew why." Stories about Rachel spread like wildfire, and what had started as a project full of promise was now a slow-motion disaster, with everyone pointing fingers at a single person. But Rachel didn't seem to realize the seriousness of the situation, or maybe she simply didn't care. Instead of keeping a low profile and letting her PR team handle the damage, she decided to take matters into her own hands and did so in the least advisable way possible. One night, without any warning, she went live on Instagram, wearing a hoodie and sporting an attitude that mixed sarcasm with defiance. "Everyone is ignoring my calls, you know? That's fine, I don't care," she said, rolling her eyes as if she were joking. But her words didn't go over well. Then, in a moment that surprised even her most loyal followers, she hinted that she would appear on a talk show that very night to talk about them, clearly referring to the production team. She said it with a smile that many interpreted as a veiled threat. The comments on the live stream came quickly, and they were far from supportive. "Why is she acting like this is a joke?" one user wrote. "She's digging her own grave," commented another. But Rachel didn't stop there. In the following days, she uploaded clips to TikTok making fun of her dual role in the movie, saying things like, "I'm two people, double the trouble, right? Haha." The tone was lighthearted, but the timing couldn't have been worse, especially after the rumors that pointed to her as the main source of problems on set. The reaction on social media was immediate and brutal. The hashtags Mwamba replaced Zegler and Mwamba Rachel Zegler cancelled started gaining traction on X, with thousands of users sharing memes, screenshots from her Instagram Live, and detailed analyses of every word she said. On Reddit, threads about Rachel multiplied with titles like, "Is this the end of Rachel Zegler?" and "Why can't Hollywood stand her anymore?" One user summed up the general sentiment with a comment that went viral. "It's not that she's unlucky, it's that people just don't like her." Even her most dedicated fans were confused, struggling to defend her. "I want to support her, but she makes it so hard," wrote one follower in a fan group. Another commented, "I thought she was a victim of the media, but after that live, I don't know what to think." Against all the advice of her PR team, who according to sources had prepared a formal apology statement, Rachel had decided to be authentic. But that authenticity was igniting a fire she couldn't control, and the consequences were only just beginning to show. What makes this situation particularly fascinating is the contrast between what's happening with Rachel and Hollywood's response, or rather, the lack of one. In any controversy of this magnitude, usually someone steps up to defend the troubled star. It could be a co-star sharing a positive anecdote, a former director praising her professionalism, or even a famous friend posting an Instagram story with a generic message of support. But with Rachel, there was nothing. Not even a vague tweet, nor a carefully worded statement. Just a silence that speaks louder than any official statement. Even people who once praised her at premieres, press events, or interviews now avoid mentioning her name as if it were radioactive. When some high-profile actors who had worked with her in the past were asked, their answers were evasive. One quickly changed the subject by talking about the weather in Los Angeles. Another gave such an empty response that it sounded like it was written by a lawyer. "I wish her the best." That kind of silence is not accidental in Hollywood. It's calculated and suggests that the industry is already taking note of what's happening. The studio behind the film, for its part, hasn't done much to calm things down. Instead of issuing a statement defending their star or clarifying the rumors, they released a dry corporate declaration about adjustments in production and their commitment to excellence. Not a single mention of Rachel, not a word of support. In Hollywood, where every word is chosen with extreme care, that omission speaks for itself. But the silence isn't limited to official statements. According to sources, several actors who were connected to the project have asked their agents not to associate them with Rachel in future promotions. An up-and-coming actress, who was originally scheduled to work with Rachel on a future film, withdrew, citing creative differences, a classic industry euphemism for saying, "I don't want to get involved in that mess." Even journalists who once praised Rachel as the new voice of her generation are now revisiting their past statements with fresh eyes, finding phrases that once seemed clever but now sound arrogant or out of place. And then there's the impact on social media, which has been nothing short of explosive. Rachel's live broadcast not only fanned the flames of controversy but also gave critics an arsenal of clips and quotes to dissect. On X, users shared snippets from her life, highlighting moments like when she said, "I don't care," in a tone that sounded more defiant than carefree. The memes didn't take long to appear. One showed Rachel rolling her eyes with the caption, "When you're asked to be professional at work." Another edited her face onto a Snow White poster with the phrase, "Mirror, mirror, who is the most problematic of them all?" On TikTok, content creators made videos reacting to her clips, some in a mocking tone and others offering serious analysis about why her attitude was driving her fans away. One particularly popular video showed a user imitating her voice and saying, "They ignore my calls, so I'll just go on a talk show and tell everything." The reaction wasn't just from trolls or haters. 7 people who once admired her were joining in. They were questioning her judgment. A comment on Reddit summed it up perfectly. "She thinks she's being authentic, but she's only showing that she doesn't know how to handle the pressure." But the drama didn't stay on social media. According to sources, the situation is having legal repercussions that could make things even more complicated for Rachel. After her Instagram Live and the TikTok clips, the studio's legal team sprang into action, reviewing every post and comment to determine whether she had violated the confidentiality and non-disparagement clauses in her contract. These clauses are common in big-budget productions and prohibit actors from speaking publicly about the project in any way that could harm its reputation or finances. According to rumors, the studio's lawyers are gathering evidence, including screenshots of her posts, internal team messages, and testimonies from crew members who felt unsettled by her behavior. A production assistant, for example, stated that she genuinely felt unsafe when Rachel raised her voice during a blocked scene, an incident that was documented by several witnesses. This is not just a matter of bad press, it is a potential legal liability that could cost millions if the studio decides to take action. It is a potential legal liability that could cost millions if the studio decides to take. Meanwhile, Rachel seems to be caught in a spiral she doesn't know how to escape from. Sources say that her legal team advised her to remain silent after her livestream, but the damage was already done. In an attempt to control the narrative, Rachel reportedly reached out to crisis publicists and even to journalists she had clashed with in the past, asking them to publish more favorable stories. But the media is not cooperating. The headlines have shifted from "The Great Comeback of Rachel Zegler" to "Rachel Zegler, too difficult to work with." Even her most loyal fans are divided, with some insisting that she is the victim of an orchestrated media campaign and others admitting they are tired of defending her. One fan wrote on X, "I love her, but I can't justify her making fun of a situation she caused herself." Another was harsher, "If you keep digging your own hole, don't complain when you get buried." The public perception that was once her greatest strength is now her biggest obstacle. What makes this situation even more intriguing is how it reflects previous patterns in Rachel's career. This is not the first time she has been embroiled in controversies revolving around her behavior or her words. Her comments about Snow White, where she criticized aspects of the original story and spoke openly about her activism, sparked a divided reaction. Some praised her for being authentic and brave, while others accused her of being ungrateful or of biting the hand that feeds her. At that time, many thought she would learn to manage her platform better, especially after seeing how the criticism affected her image. But instead, she seems to have doubled down, using social media to express her frustration rather than taking a more strategic approach. An industry source put it plainly, "Rachel is not a victim of the circumstances, he is a victim of her own decisions." And those decisions are now having consequences that go beyond a single movie. The impact of this disaster is not limited to Rachel or to this particular production. It is triggering a much larger conversation in Hollywood about how to handle young talent, especially those with large social media platforms. The studios that for years sought out authentic actors to connect with young audiences are now reconsidering whether that authenticity is an asset or a liability. According to sources, several companies are starting to include behavior clauses in contracts, especially for actors under 30, with millions of followers on platforms like Instagram or TikTok. These clauses are basically a clear message. Be yourself, but don't drag us down with you if things get out of control. No more impromptu Instagram live sessions where you might say something that harms the project. No more red carpet speeches that overshadow the movie you're promoting. A source from a talent agency was blunt. Rachel made activism seem immature, and that's hurting other actresses who genuinely want to create positive change. The collateral damage is real, and other Gen Z talents are already feeling the pressure. For example, it is said that a young actress with a profile similar to Rachel's was advised by her team to tone down her social media presence for the next 6 months while they negotiate her next project. Another, who recently signed a multi-film contract, was instructed to delete a thread of tweets in which she criticized studio executives, even though the posts had been well received by her followers. These stories show how Rachel's case is changing the rules of the game. Hollywood spent years trying to appeal to younger audiences by hiring bold, unfiltered talent, but now it's wondering if some of that talent is too unpredictable. A casting director, speaking off the record to an industry magazine, put it bluntly: Rachel turned authenticity into an HR risk. Studios don't want another case like hers. And while executives take notes and adjust contracts, the impact of this drama is spreading to an entire generation of actors who now face more intense scrutiny. But let's go back to Rachel and what this means for her future. Comeback stories aren't rare in Hollywood. We've seen celebrities fall lower and come back stronger, from actors who overcame personal scandals to stars who rebuilt their careers after failed projects. But those comebacks usually require three things: an influential mentor to support you, a loyal fan base that never abandons you, and a studio willing to give you another chance. In Rachel's case, none of those elements seem to be present. The mentors who once praised her, such as directors or producers who worked with her on West Side Story or The Hunger Games, are noticeably absent. Her fan base, although she still has supporters, is fractured, with many expressing frustration at her inability to learn from her mistakes. And the studios, already dealing with the financial losses from this halted production, don't seem eager to take a chance on her again. In fact, rumors suggest that the studio is exploring options to move forward without Rachel. A source close to an executive producer revealed that they are considering a legal separation clause that would allow them to fire her and restructure the film without having to start everything from scratch. This would involve rewriting scenes, adjusting the script, and possibly replacing her with another actress, all while trying to minimize losses. Production insurance, which normally covers interruptions, may refuse to pay if the losses are attributed to disruptions caused by talent, which means Rachel's behavior could cost millions. Meanwhile, as this drags on, other projects associated with her are starting to waver. A romantic comedy with a star-studded cast, which was supposed to be her next big release, is reportedly in the process of replacing her under the official excuse of scheduling conflicts. But insiders know the truth: no one wants to risk another disaster. And then there's the impact on her public image, which was once her greatest asset. Rachel arrived in Hollywood like a modern-day Cinderella, a talented young woman who went from uploading covers on YouTube to starring in Steven Spielberg movies. Her story was inspiring, and her charisma on social media made her a fan favorite. But now, that very same platform that lifted her up is becoming her downfall. Every post, every comment, every clip she uploads is scrutinized in detail, and most of the time, it doesn't end well for her. Her recent mix of sarcasm and self-pity on social media suggests that she's more interested in challenging her critics than reflecting on her actions. In a recent post, she wrote, "People love to hate, but I'm still me," accompanied by a winking emoji. The comments were not kind. "You're still you, but nobody likes that version," wrote one user. Another was more direct. "Maybe the problem isn't the people, Rachel. Take a look in the mirror." When a star starts seeking sympathy while the industry and fans are turning away, they're not setting up a redemption arc, they're writing a warning. The most tragic aspect of all this is that Rachel doesn't seem to grasp the seriousness of her situation. Her recent actions, from live streams to sarcastic clips on TikTok, show an attitude of defiance rather than introspection. In Hollywood, where perception is everything, that lack of self-awareness can be fatal. Stars who manage to overcome scandals usually do so by showing humility, acknowledging their mistakes, and working hard to regain trust. But Rachel, at least for now, seems to be doing the opposite. She's doubling down, acting as if the world is against her, instead of accepting that her own decisions have played a major role in this disaster. And while she keeps posting, the industry moves on without her. The headlines may still carry her name, but the spotlight is shifting to other stars, other projects, other stories. One source summed it up perfectly. Hollywood waits for no one, not even someone who used to be the next big thing. Harsh measures. So, what's next for Rachel Zegler? The question isn't just whether she can make a comeback, but whether Hollywood even wants her to. She has confirmed projects like Evita in the West End and a film with Marisa Tomei, but even those are under scrutiny. Rumors suggest that the producers of those projects are closely watching how this controversy unfolds, ready to take action if her reputation continues to decline. Meanwhile, the industry is setting new rules, creating a new playbook for the young stars coming up behind her. The days of unfiltered Instagram live sessions are numbered. Red carpets will no longer be platforms for impromptu speeches that make headlines, and actors who want to work on major productions will have to prove they can handle the pressure without becoming a liability. Rachel may have been a pioneer in the era of digital authenticity, but she has also become an example of what happens when that authenticity gets out of control. This drama also raises bigger questions about fame, social media, and the changing dynamics between studios and talent in the digital age. When stars have direct access to millions of followers, the traditional public relations filters disappear. For better or worse, Rachel is a case study of the latter. How an unfiltered voice can undo years of career building in a matter of days. The industry is watching closely, taking notes, and already implementing changes to prevent the next Rachel case. Contracts are being rewritten, agents are becoming more cautious, and executives are reevaluating what it means to be a star in 2025. Meanwhile, Rachel remains in the spotlight, but not for the reasons she expected. Her name still generates clicks, but increasingly less for her talent and more for the drama surrounding her. The big question now is whether Rachel Zegler can truly emerge from this whirlwind of controversies, or if Hollywood has closed the door without her realizing it. The coming months will be crucial. She might attempt a public image makeover, perhaps an emotional interview where she talks about growth and lessons learned. She could focus on smaller projects, away from the spotlight, to rebuild her credibility. Or she could continue down her current path, challenging her critics and alienating more people in the process. Whatever path she chooses, one thing is certain. Her story has already changed how Hollywood views young stars, and the effects of this drama will be felt for years to come. As the world waits to see what happens, one final thought lingers in the air. In an industry where perception is the most valuable currency, can a star survive when her own voice becomes her greatest enemy? Only time will tell. But for now, Hollywood silence speaks louder than any headline.